it's all the more critical that we don't.
Good evening. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave to the people of Varanasi another major infrastructure project in the form of 6-lane widening project of the Varanasi-Prayagraj section of National Highway 19 that will ease the woes of people in and around the city and boost regional tourism and development. He reviewed the progress made on the Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor project, marked the start of Dev Deepawali Festival or the Festival of Lights of the Gods in Varanasi, and witnessed sound and light show at Sarnath Archaeological Site. PM also reached out to farmers, urging them to take advantage of agricultural reforms in future and increase their income. Our in focus tonight is PM calls out vested interests spreading myths on new farm laws. That and more in this edition of News Night. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. First up, the headlines. Prime Minister reaches out to farmers in his address in Varanasi, says new agricultural reforms have given farmers new options and new legal protection. Old system also continues if someone chooses to stay with it. Asserts farmers are apprehensive because of decades of deceit. Assures farmers that his government is working with intentions as pure as Ganga Jal. Giving yet another boost to development and reinforcing spiritual heritage of Varanasi, Prime Minister inaugurates 6-lane widening project of Varanasi-Prayagraj section of National Highway 19, lights a diya on Ganga's Ghat, marking the start of Dev Deepawali Festival. PM pays floral tributes to Sant Ravi Das and witnesses sound and light show at Sarnath Archaeological Site. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with 3 teams from Genova Biopharmaceuticals, Biological E and Dr. Reddy's laboratories working on developing and manufacturing COVID-19 vaccine, appreciates efforts of scientists to come out with a vaccine solution to tackle COVID-19. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu virtually addresses the 19th session of SCO Council of Heads of Government hosted by India, expresses concern about states that leverage terrorism as an instrument of state policy, calls upon SCO member states to enforce statutes to eradicate safe havens and financial networks supporting terrorism, also calls for reforms of global institutions including WHO to rework development strategies in post-COVID-19 world. Second phase of District Development Council polls to take place in J&K on Tuesday. 43 constituencies to seal the fate of 321 candidates. Stage also set for Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation polls in Telangana. On Tuesday, 1,122 candidates to contest on 150 votes. President, Vice President and Prime Minister greet people on the occasion of Prakash Purab of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji on the 551st Prakash Parv of the first Sikh Guru. In his tribute, PM says Guru Nanak Dev Ji is the biggest symbol of reforms. Depression formed over southeast Bay of Bengal and neighborhood, likely to intensify further into a deep depression during the next 24 hours and further into a cyclonic storm. Met Department forecasts heavy to very heavy rainfall at a few places, with isolated extremely heavy falls over South Tamil Nadu and South Kerala. Joe Biden chooses all women as senior White House communications team in what his office called a first in the country's history. Jen Psaki to serve in the highly visible role of White House Press Secretary. Our top focus tonight, after giving yet another push to development of Varanasi by inaugurating 6-lane widening project of the Varanasi-Prayagraj section of National Highway 19, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hit out at vested interests, which he said are deliberately misleading farmers on the 3 farm laws passed by the government in September. He said the new agricultural reforms have given farmers new options and legal protection. He said the same people who have consistently tricked farmers for decades are now deceiving them again, while appealing to farmers to take advantage of the recent agricultural reforms and increase their income.
मैं मेरे किसान भाई बहनों को कहना चाहता हूं और मां गंगा के घाट पर से कहना चाहता हूं, काशी जैसी पवित्र नगरी से कह रहा हूं, अब छल से नहीं, गंगा जल जैसी पवित्र नीयत के साथ काम किया जा रहा है। जिन किसान परिवारों की अभी भी कुछ चिंताएं हैं, कुछ सवाल है, तो उनका जवाब भी सरकार निरंतर दे रही है, समाधान करने का भरपूर प्रयास कर रही है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterating his commitment to continuously work for the welfare of farmers of the nation. The new farm reform laws are a sincere step taken forward in this direction. Although the seeds of doubt and apprehension were sown in the minds of some section of farmers by vested political interests, addressing a gathering in Varanasi, Prime Minister reiterated his commitment towards welfare of farmers and extended a hand towards the farmers.
दशकों का छलावा किसानों को आशंकित करता है। आशंकाओं के आधार पर भ्रम फैलाने वालों की सच्चाई लगातार देश के सामने आ रही है। जब एक विषय पर इनका झूठ किसान समझ जाते हैं, तो ये दूसरे विषय पर झूठ फैलाने लग जाते हैं। देश के किसान इस बात को भली भांति समझते हैं।
Coming down heavily on opposition, Prime Minister said it is guilty of misguiding and deceiving farmers for decades and are now banking on the same formula to spread misinformation in this regard.
किसान अगर सरकारों की बातों से कई बार आशंकित रहता है, तो उसके पीछे दशकों का ये लंबा छल का इतिहास है। जिन्होंने वादे तोड़े, छल किया, उनके लिए ये झूठ फैलाना एक प्रकार से आदत बन गई है, मजबूरी बन चुका है।
Prime Minister also listed many decisions that show comparatively how the NDA government committed more funds and efforts for welfare of farmers vis-a-vis the erstwhile UPA government. He once again gave assurance that Mandi and MSP are not being dissolved.
गेहूं पर 3 लाख करोड़ रुपए किसानों को एमएसपी का मिल चुका है, यानी लगभग 2 गुना। अगर मंडियां और एमएसपी को ही हटाना था, तो इतनी बड़ी हम ताकत क्यों देते भाई?
PM stressed that in order to make farmers prosperous, the success of schemes is not enough. Equally important is the fact that farmers must get access to market and multiple options for his produce, which can help them reap profits.
सरकार की तरफ से प्रकल्प, किसान के लिए विकल्प, और दोनों साथ साथ चले, तभी देश का कायाकल्प होता है।
Prime Minister has more than once stated that the focus of the NDA government is to increase the income and prosperity of farmers. He has underlined the importance of the new farm laws. He also made a mention of this in his Mann Ki Baat address on Sunday. The senior cabinet ministers, led by Home Minister Amit Shah, have been tirelessly working to make farmers understand the finer points of the new laws that work to their benefit and are calling them for talks. Though some doubts continue to linger in the minds of farmers, Prime Minister has again sought to lay at rest any apprehensions that the farmers may have about the new laws effectively and comprehensively.
भारत माता की।
With Harikesh and Rajesh Raj, Bureau Report, DTJ.
Let's listen in to what the farmers have to say on the 3 new farm laws that have been passed by Parliament.
अब किसान अपनी फसल को स्वतंत्रता के साथ कहीं भी बेच सकता है, जहां अच्छे दाम मिलेंगे वहां अपनी फसल बेच सकता है। केंद्र सरकार का यह निर्णय किसान भाइयों के हित में है।
हम बहुत खुश हैं इस चीज़ से कि हमारी खेत पे से ही फसल बेच सकते हैं हम, कि वो बाहर भी जाके दे सकते हैं। तो बहुत बढ़िया, हम बहुत खुशी की बात है। मोदी सरकार जो फैसला लिया है बहुत अच्छा है।
सरकार ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया कि किसानों के हित में काम किया, तो इससे बिल्कुल किसान के लिए सही बजट और सही पैसे मिलेंगे, और इससे किसानों के लिए फ़ायदा ही है।
और बिचौलियों से मतलब जो नुकसान होता था किसानों को वो नहीं हो पाएगा। डायरेक्ट किसान अपनी फसल कहीं भी बेच सकता है और मतलब अच्छे दाम ले सकता है। सरकार ने जो धान के मूल्य भी मतलब तय कर दिया है उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। बाकी जो लोग मतलब इसके विषय में गलत किसानों को भड़का रहे हैं वो गलत है।
Let's now take a look at what the Prime Minister had to say in his address in Varanasi, where he spoke about the promise made by his government and the delivery. He said that MSP to be 1.5 times of input cost was the promise. It's been implemented. Money has reached the bank accounts of farmers, and MSP is now 1.5 times the input cost. That is in tune with the Swaminathan Commission recommendations. The other promise that was made by the NDA government was black marketing of urea will stop and there will be adequate availability of urea for farmers. That promise has been delivered as well. That decision has been implemented. The other promise that the government had made was that there would be income support for farmers in the form of Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme, and the delivery of that promise has also happened. 1 lakh crore rupees has reached bank accounts of over 10 crore farmer families. Modernization of mandis was a promise that the government had made as well, and the government has delivered on that promise too. It has spent crores to modernize mandis. Now, a comparative study of what had happened in UPA2 and what has happened between 2014 and 2019 in the NDA government, the first one under Modi government. And there you saw that as far as pulses is concerned, their procurement of 650 crore rupees was made during the UPA2, and in NDA the procurement was of 49,000 crore rupees of pulses as compared to 650 crore rupees pulses procurement in UPA2. That amounts to an increase of 75% point. And as far as paddy procurement is concerned, it was 2 lakh crore rupees. That was the kind of procurement that was made by the UPA2, and 5 lakh crore rupees by the NDA, 2.5 times more. And we're looking at your screens are the doubts that have been raised by some sections in society and the government's clarification. The doubts are that the MSP system will end. The government's clarification being that the MSP system will continue, and the MSP system is continuing. Another doubt being that trading at mandis will stop. The government has clarified more than once that trading at mandis is going to continue, and it is also continuing. Also, another doubt that the sections of farmers had was new provisions are anti-farmer, whereas the government's clarification is that farmers have been given options to sell produce elsewhere. So there is the option before farmers of selling within APMC mandis and at various other places like farm gate, etc. Another doubt that the farmers had was that big companies are going to exploit the small farmers under the contract system, under contract farming that is. The government's clarification was that legal protection has been granted to farmers, so farmers need not worry, big or small. Another doubt that farmers had was that farmers will stand to lose their land. The government has clarified that contract will be on agricultural produce and not on land. So there is no question of farmers losing their land. Another doubt that some sections of society had was that farmers will start to lose, in fact, they will stand to lose from the 3 farm laws. The government's clarification was that farmers will benefit through better technology and bigger market. So that brings us to our In Focus tonight, which is PM calls out vested interests spreading myths on new farm laws. To talk about that, we have with us Dr. Ashok Vishan Das, former chairman CSCP and professor economics IIPA, and Sandeep Das, a senior economic journalist. I welcome you both to News Night. I'll come to you, Dr. Ashok, first. That the Prime Minister said, and I quote, that raising questions over government policies is natural, but a new trend, he said, has emerged of raising baseless doubts and fear-mongering. So is this now pretty clear that there are vested interests that are spreading myths around the farm laws, and they are doing so deliberately?
Yes. Let me explain. Farmer need only 2 things, getting the prices right and getting the markets right. Now, these 3 legislations, they seek to do all these things. And in addition, the overarching objective of the government of the day is to enhance and augment the income of farmers. And these 3 pieces of legislation will do exactly that. Let me also illustrate. See, if farmer get the good prices, and then half of their produce remains unsold. But then even that price will not be attractive. Now with this contract farming, all the production from all corners of the all geographies and all crops will be evacuated, because you will have a lot of excess and opportunity to export. Now a lot of production which farmers produce remain unsold, and only about 50 to 55% get sold. Therefore the farmers income is very, very low. Now and let me also explain, there is nothing in these three pieces of legislation which indicate either directly or implicitly that MSP will be affected in any manner. But MSP was there. The CACP came into being in 1965, that means 55 years, and it has been continuously doing its job. Not a single year the prices fixed by the CACP has reduced compared to the previous year, though the market prices has gone down compared to the previous year. Despite that, the number of the MSP fixed by the government has never reduced. At best, in the worst case scenario, they have remained constant. That is point number one. Point number two is that even the domain of MSP, when CACP came into being and the system of fixing the minimum support price started in 1965, there were just 2 commodities. Today, we have 23 commodities. So the domain of MSP has expanded tremendously. That is one, and the prices have been monotonously increasing despite the market prices going down. Now, with these 3 pieces of legislation, how the farmers are going to be benefited in a number of ways. But let me put 2-3 important points to summarize my point. Initially, it will enhance the prices. It will help farmers to get evacuated whatever they produce, and then there is a immense opportunity and scope for export which remains underutilized nowadays, and that's with contract farming and
Fair
these
enough.
3 pieces of legislation. It will augment, and therefore farmers' income is likely to increase.
Do you agree with that, Dr. Das? If I quote the Prime Minister, he said, if the buyer buys agri-produce from farms, takes care of logistics and gives farmers better prices, shouldn't farmers get the benefits? So do farmers then stand to gain from the 3 laws that have been passed by Parliament and have now been enacted, also because they will now be accessing a bigger market and even better technology?
Yes, sure.
Dr. Das?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree on the fact that if you look at the protesting farmers, most of the farmers are from Haryana, Punjab, and partly from the UP. You must look at the transaction cost. Today in APMC mandis, the Punjab, the mandi taxes, and if you like rural development cess and all, is something around 6.5%. That means the transaction cost is 6.5%. When you purchase a commodity in Punjab, Haryana, you pay 6.5%, which is the very higher side of the commodity. I can give you a data. Basically, Punjab got about 4,500 crore rupees from these taxes, and Haryana got close to about 1,800 crore rupees in the last financial year from these taxes. So with 6% transaction cost, it's a very inefficient system of procurement.
Is that the reason, Mr. Das, that some state governments are opposing this? That they will stand to lose this revenue?
Huge amount of money. Just look at 4,551 crore rupees. The Punjab, the food corporation paid to Punjab for procurement of rice and wheat in Punjab. About 6.5%, mandi tax, RTI commissions, rural development sales. So these distort the entire transaction cost. What this act does, the first act, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion Facilitation Act, what is that it allows to farmers to sell their commodity beyond APMC mandis, basically. That means now technically Food Corporation of India can buy the commodity by bypassing the APMC mandi. That means 6.5% savings, basically. Maximum transaction cost can be around 1%, not cannot be 6.5%. So that is where so I think that the entire protest is led by those RTIs who get 2.5% commission. Nowhere in the country except Haryana, Punjab, you get 2.5% RTI commissions. The commission is in commission. Nowhere in the country. So that I think there is some people are behind this protest. And about the MSP part of it, I must tell that MSP regime will continue to do that because India need rice and wheat from Punjab, Haryana and other states. So MSP regime is not going to dismantle. Idea is to expand MSP regime like this government has done for pulses, for oil seeds and all.
Okay, fair enough. Well, the Prime Minister said, Dr. Ashok, that those who want to continue with the old system can continue with it. So where does the debate really, I mean, there shouldn't be any debate whatsoever on something like this, because if you are not in favor of the new system being brought in by the new laws, you always have the choice of continuing with what you've been doing all this while.
Absolutely. See, it's like a cafeteria approach. I go to a cafeteria, I am used to eating dal and the pulses and the rice. Suppose that's the situation. I'm used to these two commodity, and the cafeteria they add another dish, paneer or something else, another vegetable, mushroom. How does it matter? You will continue with dal and bhat if you like that way, but there is an additional option. So it enhances the freedom of choice. That is one thing. Second thing, nowhere in India, not even in anywhere in the world, I have extensively traveled both in India and at least 30 countries. Nowhere, anywhere in the world, you are bound to sell your own produce at not as per your choice. What was happening before these three pieces of legislation? Farmers were compulsorily required to sell their produce only in mandi, not anywhere outside. Now, that was not considered as legal transaction. Now, this was bizarre and very, very unacceptable that I, as a producer, you tell me another, at least one commodity where the producer is bound to sell at a place not of his choice or not at his price. Now, farmers were under the shackles of such a very, very harsh kind of policy regime. Now, government has freed the farmer from this kind of compulsion. So, essentially, it is a democratization of the farmers, because everybody was free. We are free citizen of free country, and why farmers cannot be free? That is beyond the comprehension. So by these three pieces of legislation, farmers are also made compulsory. And now let me add also this, for example, Essential Commodity Acts 1955. You know, many of us were not born in 1955, and at that time this was made, and since then, last 65 years that has been continuing. Why it was continuing and why it was made? Let us deepen our understanding. Because it was made when the country was heavily dependent on imports of key staple food on other countries, and therefore there was a need for such a legislation. Now we have moved from import dependence to self-sufficiency and to food exporting country. Now where is the need? Because world is changing rapidly. We have to be smart enough to keep pace with those changes. And one such changes is you do away with the Essential Commodity Act of 1955, 65 years ago. These are the three things which the government has done very, very good. And in short to medium and long term, the farmers are going to immensely benefit. That's my theory. My research says so.
Okay, Mr. Das, will small farmers be protected? Because some are raising doubts that small farmers may not be protected and they may be exploited by sponsors or those that they enter in contract with.
So, if you look at the second act, which is called the Farmers Agreement on the Price Assurance and Farm Services Act, which basically legalizes, give a legal teeth to the contract farming. The fact is that today, even in our country, about 40% of our farming is done by we call it bhag chas or whatever we call it. Basically, it's an outsourced job. Like the owner of the land is me, and somebody else is stealing it. So that is also some kind of contract farming. What this act does is that, in fact, it's a very stringent provisions. Basically, act has. It allows private sector the contract farming through procurement of commodities from the farmers, which is allow also. So you must understand that in our country the processing of the agricultural commodities are very low. The percentage of processing is low. This Contract Farming Act, what it does, that it will allow technology by private sector to come in and they will invest. They will help farmers in getting a better seed, better technology, so that they can produce better quality food for export, for domestic consumption as well. So these are all it's a win-win for situation for all, because for far too long our small farmers have been deprived of quality seeds, quality equipments and all. So this contact farming, because there is no legal teeth, many of the private sector do not want to enter into that arena, because without a law, it will be very difficult for buyer and a producer to operate basically. In fact, this law on contact farming is very stringent in favor of farmers. In case of any dispute, there is a dispute settlement mechanism, and I assume I am hopeful that this law will allow private sector to come in and do processing, and the small farmers will be immensely benefited by this. And one more point I must add here, that because of the farmers agitation, and I did that, today Punjab and Haryana, even the minimum support price given to the farmers are not directly transferred to the farmers account. It goes to the RTI commissions. That is the item you are talking of basically.
Yes.
It goes to the commission agent account, then it goes to the farmers basically.
Okay.
So that means this entire protest has been supported by the group of commission agent, who get 2.5% of the commission, which is huge amount of money basically of the total transaction.
Absolutely. So we know that there are vested interests who are spreading lies or misleading farmers about the 3 farm laws that have been enacted. Well, Dr. Ashok, would you say that the need of the hour then is to have greater communication with farmers, also spread greater awareness among farmers about the right spirit of the 3 legislations?
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's our time. It has to be done. See, it is said that a person who's sleeping, is very easy to wake him up. But if a person is not sleeping but pretend to sleep, then it's very difficult to wake that person up. Now let me also add, currently the system before these 3 pieces of legislation, even the farmers produce the proceeds of that, the amount which is got out of the deal of selling your product goes first to the NHI farm, to the Aratiya, and he keeps that money for 2, 3, sometimes up to 15 days. And farmers, now you can understand what must be going in them, because he is depending on the mercy of that Aratiya. Leave aside, I think 2.5% commission of Aratiya is quite good, but that is one aspect of the story and the devils of the farmer. Another is, he will always be, why my price or why my proceeds should go to any third person. If he has to charge 2.5%, yes, I can pay it, I mean, under certain difficult condition. But the story does not stop here. I still have to please him and depend on his mercy to get my money sometime after 3 days, sometime up to 15 days.
Absolutely.
I have closely studied that Punjab, Haryana and various states of the country.
Absolutely.
Very closely.
So there are several vested interests who stood to gain by ensuring that farmers were confined to the mandi system. There are commission agents and there are other middlemen who stood to gain, who kept farmers' money for a long time. Farmers were denied of their dues for months together, sometimes years, sometimes they never got their dues whatsoever. Well, all that is now set to change with the 3 new laws enacted. What is important is that there should be awareness creation and spreading of awareness among more and more farmers so that they see the 3 new laws in the true spirit. Thank you, Dr. Ashok and Mr. Das, for joining us on Newsnight tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move on now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicated the 6-lane widening project of the Handia, Prayagraj, Rajatalab, Varanasi section of National Highway 19 to the nation, which will boost tourism of the state. PM also took a boat ride from Dumri Ghat to Lalita Ghat and also paid obeisance to Baba Vishwanath. He inspected the Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor project.
Har Har Mahadev.
After invoking Mahadev, Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicated to the nation the 6-lane widening project of Handia, Prayagraj, Rajatalab, Varanasi section of National Highway 19.
देव दीपावली और गुरु नानक देव जी के प्रकाशोत्सव पर आज काशी को आधुनिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का एक और उपहार मिल रहा है। इसका लाभ काशी के साथ ही प्रयागराज के लोगों को भी होगा।
The 73-kilometer stretch of the newly widened 6-laned NH19, made with an outlay of rupees 2,447 crore rupees, is expected to reduce the travel time between Prayagraj and Varanasi by an hour. It has 5 elevated corridors, 3 flyovers, 10 vehicle underpasses and 12 pedestrian underpasses. Important townships of East Uttar Pradesh, Prayagraj, Bhadohi, Mirzapur and Varanasi are now connected. In a boost to tourism, the two temple towns of Varanasi and Prayagraj are now easily accessible for all. Pilgrims to the two cities can also visit Ma Vidyavasini Temple in Mirzapur and Sitamani Temple in Bhadohi without taking a detour. Small enterprises and MSMEs in this stretch will also benefit. The stretch is an important part of Delhi-Kolkata stretch of the Golden Quadrilateral. He said, construction of perishable cargo centre, local farmers will soon have a global presence. Uttar Pradesh is now known as Express Pradesh. Under leadership of Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, work on a defence corridor has also been started. The state is witnessing a leap from just 2 to 12 airports.
पिछले 6 वर्षों में बनारस में हजारों करोड़ रुपए के प्रोजेक्ट तेजी से पूरे किए गए हैं और बहुत सारी परियोजनाओं पर काम चल रहा है। एयरपोर्ट से शहर को जोड़ने वाली सड़क आज बनारस में विकास कार्यों की पहचान बन गई है। रेलवे स्टेशन की कनेक्टिविटी भी बेहतर हुई है।
हम सब एहसास कर सकते हैं पिछले 6 वर्षों के दौरान लगभग 18,000 करोड़ रुपए की परियोजनाएं या तो लोकार्पित हुई हैं या उनका शिलान्यास हुआ है और वर्तमान में ढेर सारी परियोजनाओं पर युद्ध स्तर पर कार्य भी चल रहा है।
After addressing the gathering at Khajuri Maidan, Prime Minister Modi took a boat ride from Dumri Ghat to Lalita Ghat. Prime Minister viewed a beautiful sand art tribute as well, after which he paid obeisance to Baba Vishwanath. Prime Minister also inspected the Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor project, which will make it easier for pilgrims to access the temple directly after bathing in Ganga. Work began in March 2019 with Prime Minister laying the foundation stone for this ambitious project. The construction of the corridor is underway across an area of 5 lakh square feet area. A number of facilities for the devotees are also coming up. With Rajesh Raj and team in Varanasi, Bureau Report, DD India.
Addressing the gathering at Varanasi's Rajghat, Prime Minister also said that there are few people who oppose every issue for the sake of politics. He slammed the attempts at stalling the construction of the Kashi corridor.
जब काशी ने तय किया था कि बाबा के दरबार तक विश्वनाथ कॉरिडोर बनेगा, भव्यता दिव्यता के साथ साथ श्रद्धालुओं की सुविधा को भी बढ़ाया जाएगा। विरोध करने वालों ने तब इसे लेकर भी काफी कुछ कहा था, बहुत कुछ किया भी था, लेकिन आज बाबा की कृपा से काशी का गौरव पुनर्जीवित हो रहा है।
Heading out at the opposition, the PM said that while heritage means culture, faith and values, for some people inheritance means their family and their family's name.
हमारे लिए विरासत का मतलब है देश की धरोहर। जबकि कुछ लोगों के लिए विरासत का मतलब होता है अपना परिवार और अपने परिवार का नाम। हमारे लिए विरासत का मतलब है हमारी संस्कृति, हमारी आस्था, हमारे मूल्य। उनके लिए विरासत का मतलब है अपनी प्रतिमाएं, अपने परिवार की तस्वीरें।
With the lighting of the Diya at Varanasi Ghat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi commenced Dev Deepawali festival, or the festival of lights of the gods in Varanasi. Auspicious month of Kartik, a full moon night. Kashi nestled along the banks of the Ganga. It is believed that the gods of Devlok descend on the banks of the Ganga on this holy night. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended Dev Deepawali in Devnagari, Kashi. Lighting a humble earthen lamp that dispels darkness, Prime Minister wished one and all.
सभी देशवासियों को कार्तिक पूर्णिमा देव दीपावली की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। काशी की ये ऊर्जा, काशी की ये भक्ति, ये शक्ति, उसको कोई थोड़ी बदल सकता है।
Dev Deepawali marks the victory of Lord Shiva over demon Tripurasur. Gods descend at Kashi to express their thanks by lighting diyas along the banks of river Ganga. People have kept this tradition alive over centuries.
काश्या ही काशते काशी सर्व प्रकाशिका, अर्थात काशी तो आत्मज्ञान से प्रकाशित होती है, इसलिए काशी सबको, पूरे विश्व को प्रकाश देने वाली है।
Prime Minister also launched a web portal for Dev Mahadev of Kashikapuri, one of the Saptapuris. Prime Minister also saluted those who sacrifice for the nation and urged the country to light diyas in their honor.
आज ये दीपक उन आराध्यों के लिए भी जल रहे हैं जिन्होंने देश के लिए अपने प्राण न्योछावर किए, जो जन्मभूमि के लिए बलिदान हुए। काशी की ये भावना, देव दीपावली की परंपरा का ये पक्ष भावुक कर जाता है।
Talking of the importance of our heritage, like the celebration of Dev Deepawali, Prime Minister lauded return of Devi Annapurna's statue from Canada as a blessing.
100 साल से भी पहले माता अन्नपूर्णा की जो मूर्ति काशी से चोरी हो गई थी, वो अब फिर वापस आ रही है।
UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath hailed the leadership of the Prime Minister, because of which the cultural heritage of the country is continuously touching new heights.
1913 में काशी में मां अन्नपूर्णा की एक मूर्ति चोरी हुई थी। आज आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के अनुकंपा से काशी की मां अन्नपूर्णा एक बार फिर से काशी वासियों को प्राप्त होने वाली है।
With Kashi lit up and warm diya lights, Prime Minister took a cruise along River Ganga from Rajghat to Chet Singh. On board the boat, he also enjoyed an enthralling laser show beamed along the Chet Singh Ghat. Prime Minister paid floral tributes to Sant Ravidas at the brightly lit Sant Ravidas Park. A city of culture and spirituality, Kashi saw Prime Minister enjoy a beautiful cultural performance earlier in the evening. Bureau Report, DD India. And Prime Minister ended his evening at Sarnath. He watched a magnificent light and sound show that was recently inaugurated. Sarnath is a holy site where Lord Buddha had delivered his first sermons. The show is a retelling of Lord Buddha's life and his preachings.
सारनाथ में शाम के समय पर्यटन को बढ़ावा देने के लिए और लोक शिक्षा के लिए भी आप सबकी जो लंबे समय से मांग थी वो अब पूरी हो गई। लेजर शो में अब भगवान बुद्ध के करुणा, दया और अहिंसा के संदेश साकार होंगे। ये संदेश आज और भी प्रासंगिक होते जाते हैं। जब दुनिया हिंसा, अशांति और आतंक के खतरे देखकर चिंतित है।
भारत का एक बौद्ध तीर्थ है। बौद्ध धर्म का संपूर्ण संसार है। बुद्ध के चरणों की कंपन, उनके वाणी की गूंज, मानो आज भी यहाँ के स्तूप, अशोक स्तंभ और विहारों के अवशेषों में बसी हुई है। विश्व का गौरव, संस्कृति का सार, सारनाथ।
Let's shift focus from Varanasi now to all that is happening on the vaccine front. As the world races towards finding a COVID-19 vaccine, India is looking to be self-reliant in both its development and production. Well, at least 5 pharmaceutical companies of India are engaged in vaccine development. PM is personally reviewing the progress in this regard. PM had a virtual meeting with scientists working on the vaccine on Monday. The centre has also initiated a robust COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing and delivery ecosystem to meet the demand.
Fight against the COVID-19 pandemic continues in India. Prime Minister has been personally monitoring the progress of vaccine development in India. He visited 3 cities on Saturday, facilities of Zydus in Ahmedabad, Serum Institute in Pune and Bharat Biotech in Hyderabad. On Monday, Prime Minister had virtual meetings with 3 teams working on developing and manufacturing vaccine for COVID-19. These teams were from Genova Biopharmaceuticals in Pune, Biological E Limited in Hyderabad and Dr. Reddy's Laboratories in Hyderabad. Prime Minister appreciated the efforts taken by the scientists in these companies to come out with a vaccine solution to tackle COVID-19. The potential of various platforms for vaccine development was also discussed. Prime Minister asked the companies to come out with their suggestions and ideas regarding the regulatory processes and related matters. He also suggested that the companies should take extra efforts to inform the general public in simple language about the vaccine and related matters such as its efficacy. Matters relating to logistics, transport, cold chain in respect of delivering the vaccines were also discussed. All the vaccine candidates discussed are at different stages of trials and detailed data and results are expected early next year onwards. The Prime Minister advised all the departments concerned to engage with the manufacturers and seek to resolve matters so that the efforts by these companies bear fruit in order to serve the needs of the country and the entire world. Ambassadors of 100 countries are scheduled to arrive in Pune on 4th December to visit Serum Institute of India and Genova Biopharma. Some countries have already acknowledged India's role as the pharmacy of the world and are focusing on expanding bilateral cooperation in areas of health and life sciences. Government has announced a stimulus package of 900 crores for the mission COVID Suraksha to promote indigenous vaccine. The grant will be provided to the Department of Biotechnology for research and development of Indian COVID-19 vaccines. Meanwhile, Dr. Harshvardhan, Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, distributed masks and soaps at the Old Delhi railway station on Monday. He said that India will get the vaccine in the first quarter of the next year.
अगला साल शुरू होने के बाद शुरुआती जो 2-3-4 महीने हैं उसमें संभावना है कि वैक्सीन हम देश के लोगों के लिए उपलब्ध करा पाएंगे और जुलाई अगस्त तक लगभग 25 से 30 करोड़ लोगों को हम वैक्सीन देने की योजना हमारी है और उसके हिसाब से पूरी तैयारियां देश के अंदर चल रही हैं.
India crossed a landmark milestone in its fight against COVID-19 with the total tests having crossed the 14 crore mark. In the past 24 hours, only 38,772 persons were found to be infected with COVID. In the same period, India also registered 45,333 new recoveries, ensuring a net reduction of 7,004 cases from the active caseload. India's present active caseload of 4,46,952 consists of just 4.74% of India's total positive cases. The recovery rate now stands at 93.81%. The total recovered cases stand at 88,47,600. The gap between recovered cases and active cases presently stands at 84,648, which is 19.8 times the active cases. Meanwhile, the states continue to take tough decisions to arrest the spread of COVID-19 in India. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
India celebrated the 551st Prakash Parv of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, on Monday. Devotees thronged the Gurudwaras across the nation to pray on the occasion. On the occasion of 551st Prakash Parv of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Guru Purab was celebrated across the country with full devotion and enthusiasm. This festival is celebrated on the occasion of the birth anniversary of the first Guru of the Sikhs, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He founded the Sikh religion. On this occasion, special prayers were held at the Golden Temple in Amritsar.
गुरु नानक देव जी का गुरपुरब है जी जन्मदिन ते इत्थे संगतां बहुत हुम आके पहुंचियां हुई ने ते इत्थे दीपमाला भी सवेरे सवेरे जगा देंदे ने गुरु महाराज की खुशियां दे विच प्राप्त करते हैं सारे संगत इशनान कर रही है और बड़ी बड़ी दूर तो संगतां आईयां ने रौनक बहुत है जी बहुत है भरिया पिया जी.
A large number of devotees also converged at Delhi's Gurudwara Bangla Sahib and Gurudwara Rakabganj on this occasion. President, Vice President and Prime Minister greeted the citizens on Prakash Parv.
सभी को गुरु नानक देव जी के प्रकाश पर्व की भी बहुत बहुत बधाई. आज हम रिफॉर्म्स की बात करते हैं, लेकिन समाज और व्यवस्था में रिफॉर्म्स के बहुत बड़े प्रतीक तो स्वयं गुरु नानक देव जी ही थे. जब उन सुधारों की सार्थकता सामने आने लगती है तो सब कुछ ठीक हो जाता है. यही सीख हमें गुरु नानक देव जी के जीवन से मिलती है.
Union and Minister Prakash Javadekar and Union Housing and Urban Affairs Minister Hardeep Singh Puri released a book written to highlight the special relationship that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government have with the Sikh community.
The Prime Minister has had a very special relationship with the Sikh community. In every speech of his, he has praised the contribution of the community, the sacrifices that members of the community serving in the paramilitary forces, in the police, in the armed forces have made for the defense of the country. और ये religion जो है, it's a religion of humanity.
Prakash Parv is being celebrated in several parts of the world. Havelock Road in London's South Hall, famously called a mini Punjab, will soon be known as Guru Nanak Road. With inputs from Girish Nishana, Newsnight Desk, DD India. The second phase of the District Development Council election is scheduled to start across Jammu and Kashmir on Tuesday. The election, which has 196 candidates in 25 constituencies in Kashmir and 125 candidates in 18 seats of Jammu, will seal the fate of 321 candidates in all. The fate of the candidates will be decided by 7,90,000 voters, and 2,762 polling stations have been set up. The administration is also decked up for a fair and peaceful election. Caution is also being taken in view of COVID-19.
8 फेज ये जो इलेक्शन है डिस्ट्रिक्ट डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल की जनरल इलेक्शन जो पहली बार हो रही है और साथ में बाई इलेक्शन पंच की और सरपंच की हो रही हैं. इसमें कल फेज 2 के चुनाव हैं. कल लगभग 2142 पोलिंग स्टेशन में पोलिंग होगी 7 लाख से ज़्यादा वोटर इसमें एलिजिबल हैं। इसमें कश्मीर प्रोविंस के 10 जिलों में 25 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसीज में वोट कल डाले जाएंगे। सब मिला के एक जिला परिषद की 14 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी हैं, कश्मीर में 10 जिले हैं, जम्मू में 10 जिले हैं, तो कश्मीर में 140 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसीज हो गई टोटल और जम्मू में भी 140। कल कश्मीर की 25 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी के चुनाव हैं, डीडीसी की डिस्ट्रिक्ट डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल की, और जम्मू के 18 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसीज के चुनाव हैं।
The Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation elections will also be held on Tuesday, for which security arrangements have been put in place. The Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation is one of the largest municipal corporations in the country. These municipal corporations are in 4 districts. This entire area comprises 24 assembly constituencies and 5 Lok Sabha seats in Telangana. India has asked SCO member nations to combat the menace of terrorism collectively, while stressing that peace and security are the essential prerequisites of cooperation in the post-COVID world. In his virtual address to 19th session of SCO Council of Heads of Government hosted by India, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu expressed concern about states that leverage terrorism as an instrument of state policy and called upon SCO member states to enforce internationally recognized legal statutes to comprehensively eradicate safe havens, infrastructure and financial networks supporting terrorism.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Monday expressed his concern about states that leverage terrorism as an instrument of state policy and called upon Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states to enforce internationally recognized legal statutes to comprehensively eradicate safe havens, infrastructure and financial networks supporting terrorism.
The most important challenge faced by us in the region is terrorism, particularly cross-border terrorism. Terrorism is truly the enemy of humanity. It is a scourge we need to collectively combat. India condemns terrorism in all its manifestations. We remain concerned about threats emerging from ungoverned spaces and are particularly concerned about states that leverage terrorism as an instrument of state policy.
Observing that the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic has slowed down economic trajectory of all member states, Vice President said that India has fought it bravely and has shown remarkable resilience in fighting the virus as well as ensuring economic stability.
And this global vaccine production and delivery capacity will be used to help all the countries in fighting this crisis. More than 30 indigenous vaccines are currently being developed in our country. 3 of them are in advanced stage. Thanks to its world-class pharmaceutical industry, India has demonstrated itself as a pharmacy to the world.
Vice President said that socio-political impact of COVID-19 has exposed the weakness of global institutions. He asserted that India was committed to taking its cooperation to a new heights by playing a proactive, positive and constructive role in the organization. Taposh Bhattacharya's report, TD India.
Latest satellite and ship observations indicate that the well-marked low-pressure area over southeast Bay of Bengal and neighborhood concentrated into a depression on Monday and lay centered over southeast Bay of Bengal about 1,150 kilometers east-southeast of Kanyakumari. It is very likely to intensify further into a deep depression during the next 24 hours. It is also likely to intensify further into a cyclonic storm. Heavy to very heavy rainfall have been forecast at a few places with isolated extremely heavy falls over South Tamil Nadu and South Kerala on 2nd December. And isolated heavy to very heavy rainfall is likely over these regions on the 1st, 3rd and 4th December. Heavy rainfall at isolated places is very likely over south coastal Andhra Pradesh during the 2nd and 3rd December and over Lakshadweep during 3rd and 4th December. In international news, US President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris have announced new members of the White House staff who will serve in senior communications roles. According to the Biden team, the diverse, experienced and talented women demonstrate President-elect Biden's continued commitment to building an administration that looks like America and is ready to deliver results for working families on day one. For the first time in history, these communications roles will be filled entirely by women. US President-elect Joe Biden on Sunday tapped key campaign staff and advisors to lead his all-women communications team, naming former Obama State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki as his White House press secretary and campaign spokeswoman Kate Bedingfield as communications director. Senior advisor to the Biden-Harris campaign, Simone Sanders, will be Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's chief spokeswoman, and Biden's former press secretary as vice president, Elizabeth Alexander, will be the first lady to be Jill Biden's communications director. Joe Biden retweeted the information shared by the Twitter handle of Biden-Harris presidential transition, which is the official account of the Biden-Harris presidential transition. The tweet read, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris today announced new members of the White House staff who will serve in senior communications roles. For the first time in history, these communications roles will be filled entirely by women. Senior campaign advisors Karine Jean-Pierre and Ashley Antine, also a former senior advisor to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, will serve as Deputy White House Press Secretary and Communications Director for the Vice President, respectively, and Pili Tobar, former Hispanic Media Director for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, will serve as Deputy Communications Director. Earlier on Sunday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Biden had also picked top members of his economic team. Neera Tanden, president of the Progressive Center for American Progress think tank, will be named Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and Cecilia Roos, a labor economist at Princeton University, to chair the Council of Economic Advisors. Bureau Report, DD India. And now a look at some other international news stories. US President-elect Joe Biden suffered hairline fractures in his foot while playing with one of his dogs and will probably have to wear a protective boot for several weeks. Doctors initially thought the former vice president had merely sprained his ankle but ordered an additional scan of the injury. A follow-up CT scan confirmed hairline or small fractures. New Zealand's workplace regulator filed charges against 13 parties on Monday following an investigation into a volcanic eruption on White Island in 2019 which killed 22 people. WorkSafe, New Zealand's primary regulator for workplace-related incidents, said in a news conference its investigations found 13 parties had not met their health and safety obligations in taking the tourists to the White Island. And before we leave, we give you a peep into the Christmas preparations at the White House in Washington, D.C. Take a look at the fabulous preparations to welcome Santa in the White House. Namaskar.